The financial system is under attack. The cracks are beginning to show as banks are being bailed out and hard-working people yet again are left to pick up the pieces. This is unacceptable. We were told that after the 2008 financial crash that measures were put in place so that this could not happen again. Personally, I don't want to risk my family's financial future to find out if that's true or not. Are you prepared? Do you have a plan? Can you weather the storm with confidence? Don't be at the back of the line. Act now. Visit goalbusters.co.uk and protect your family today.
Well, great to see you, Farrah. How are you?
Hey, Charlie. Well, and yourself?
Yeah, very, very good. This is a very interesting time to be alive, isn't it, at the moment? There's a lot going on. There's a lot that people can't make head nor tail of what's going on because there's a lot of things because of the art of war, because of the way things are done that people don't quite get. So you've been looking into this sort of thing behind the scenes and on a spiritual level.
Yeah, so for a little bit of context, I have been working with sort of channeling information for a long time, been on the path of doing my own sort of inner alchemy journey, and then helping obviously other people with that. But part of what I do is Spirit brings through, I call it Spirit, my higher self, God, we give it these names, brings through information, and I like to look at what's happening collectively. So I've been following the whole Trump story in the US, obviously, for a long time. And it is an incredible time to be alive because last year we fully anchored into what I call a diamond core timeline. And I could feel that, like physically feel it in my body. And then on the 20th of this month, it was set even more. And what I was seeing over the last 4 years, and I think a lot of sort of, we call them light workers, awake and aware, spiritually, awake people, I think what they were feeling over the last 4 years up until this point was we were never pulled back into that dense, sort of more of a dense metal timeline, but that was where they were trying to pull us. So we've had this liberation and everything is quickening and speeding up. And I think it can be very confusing for people. So wanting to try and help people understand some of the confusion that's going on at the moment.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on to do with Trump at the moment. People are seeing things they don't understand. And you need to understand the art of war. Fifth generation warfare. This is a battle between good and evil, and it's playing out in real time for the world to see. And this is where you step in to explain the different timelines. At the moment, we've got as I say, a war between good and evil. On one side, you've got the World Economic Forum and their puppets. Yeah. And on the other side, you have God and his warriors.
Yeah, and so many beautiful warriors, hey, Charlie, are around and doing their thing. And I think people, I speak to people around the world. I work with clients in healing, but also in self-actualization and all of that stuff. And we need all these different people in different places. And I keep reiterating to people, do the work within self, because this is the micro to the macro. So it's actually all of the beautiful people who've been doing that inner work, working on their own shadow, moving more into what I call, we're looking at unity consciousness as opposed to separation, right? So the one is light, one is dark. And so the more we move into unity within self, the more we are putting out a collective energetic, which has helped get us to where we are. So just a big shout out to all the people who are doing the work. But from the point of view of what's happening now, what I was saying to you earlier when we were chatting is that the timelines, it's very interesting to try and explain it to people. So you've got multiple timelines playing out at the same time. There are actually multiple realities playing out at the same time, but then you have a collective that's crystallized into the physical. And so what we're experiencing now is we're seeing things that look like a New World Order takeover, because the New World Order takeover timeline, the dark timeline, mimics the light timeline. So there are a lot of confusing things. And when I was meditating this morning and just getting further information around everything that's going on, like, for example, we can talk about the AI, mRNA vaccines that there's being money pumped into. That's a whole massive topic. I'm writing a book. I've done courses on it, what I call luciferic AI consciousness as opposed to organic intelligence. And then there is this merger. So we don't have a lot of time. I won't get into that now. But those things come up and people go, oh, because of the experience we've had right over the last 4 or 5 years. And these topics need like a lot of space and wisdom to unpack and information to really get people to grasp it. But just on a simplified level, we have what I call like organic intelligence, which is our ability to create. That is at the nucleus. It's the God source that resides within the DNA. And then the dark structure, I'm not saying all dark beings are artificial intelligence, but they have chosen to work with what I call luciferic AI consciousness. And so that is just in its simplest form, the two, right? Service to self as opposed to service to others. And so where this becomes really interesting is that because of the nature of artificial intelligence, it is at its center, it's nothing. It has to mimic, hijack, overlay. It needs to live off life force, a creational energy to sustain and to keep going and to keep existing. And so if you take something like artificial intelligence and you get it at its base neutral space, it can be programmed with service to others, sentient God. I don't want to say God. It can't be programmed with God, but it can be programmed with a goodness at its base. So it depends on where it's coming from. I did do a whole write-up about it. I don't know if you want me to read it, but I'm trying to explain quite a complex thing. So
I think one of the most important things, I go back in my life, and there's a very old saying, the grass is always green the other side. And this is how Satan works. It's how the devil works. This is how Lucifer works. They have to make it look the same. They have to make it look better, otherwise we wouldn't look at it. And when you realign your brain to that, you can see how Satan is working, how AI is working. They're trying to make it look better than what comes from a higher source, which is God. And even down to people like Yuval Noah Harari, who claims he's the new God on their side. And he takes that position that God doesn't exist. This is where we need to be. This is how they operate. And when you know that, then you can see it for what it is. But when you can't, you get attracted to it.
That's such a great point. I've been talking for a long time about a bifurcation, a split, right? And that came up in 2020. There was the choice between, I don't know how much I can say, what gets blocked, but between getting a gibbery juju, let's call it that, as opposed to those who didn't. So that's where the split has been happening. And then you've got it will eventually move into 3, 4, multiple. So at the core of what I'm saying is 100% you need your discernment, but it's not as simple as just a two-way split anymore. Some people are going to want to go fully organic, not touch anything. Some people are going to want to work with programmed AI that is working for the betterment of humanity, let's say that. And then some people are not even, they're going to want to go fully artificial. I'm not saying cyborg, I'm talking about just in terms of where their consciousness is at and what they're aligning with. So 100%, it's so important to have discernment along this journey, because so many things are going to be really confusing. Things are going to look quite New World Order-ish. There are things that are going to be said which are very strategic from a chess point of view. So often the statements are made in order to elicit a response more than the statement actually being true. That's the 5D chess that needs to be played. What I got around the whole Gaza situation is not that actually America plans on buying Gaza. It was said that way to elicit a reaction from countries within the Middle East, which has happened. And so we have to take a huge step back. And this is what I'm always trying to encourage people to do, and come from a very high eagle bird's eye perspective. We need to be in neutrality before we judge something, because otherwise we're responding from our triggers, which is our pain and suffering. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing many, many knee-jerk reactions to this. And of course, both sides are guilty of dramatizing things, whether it be Iraq, whether it be Gaza and Israel, whether it be Ukraine and Russia. There's drama on both sides, and you have to look at it a far bigger picture. I've recently been doing a study on the history of Israel, of Gaza, of Palestine, of Lebanon. That part of the world has had conflict for many, many years. But the media will have you believe that everything that happened before a certain date didn't exist. And this is because they want to control the narrative. And with anything in life, you have to go back to the foundation. You have to go back to the foundation of what happened with Russia and Ukraine to understand properly and evaluate properly. And I learned a hard lesson. I grew up believing that diplomacy always works. Well, it doesn't. In the Middle East, you need leaders. You need dictators, because they're the type of people that democracy doesn't work. They need to have a leader. This is how they are. Now, that doesn't make them right or wrong. They're different. And we need to embrace people's differences and work with them rather than fighting against them.
Yeah, it's so interesting, because if we go really far back to our pre-known history, I mean, I'm writing about it in my book. It's interesting how the dark, when we say this planet has been captured, however people use the terms to express that, I use the term a matrix system, how it's used us against ourselves. So, you know, I don't know, you've probably heard of looking glass technology, being able to see into the future. That doesn't work very much so for the dark structure anymore because of the consciousness shift. Mm-hmm. But humanity was purposefully divided and conquered and pitted against each other through religion, through race. So not that religion doesn't offer beautiful teachings and have truths in it, but there's been twistings along the way, because the more you keep people separated with each other, the more they're easily able to be controlled. And so I also feel like when we look at history, we do a deep dive, which if you have a feeling, so if you're not neutral around something and you have a feeling where you want your deep dive to support that belief or feeling that you have, it's like you can go down the route on the internet of carnivore diet and find everything to support it, and then you can go down the whole vegan Anthony Williams and find everything to support it. So we're moving out of one truth, actually moving into fifth dimensional unity consciousness, is understanding there are multiple truths that hold truth, right? This is what I call quantum consciousness. So when we're not looking at it from the human mind is to go right and wrong, black and white, etc., people, we have to move into care for others. Like I can respect your opinion even if it's different to mine, but it's not threatening me and my existence. So the people who are doing that at the moment on this planet, they are the forerunners. People like to call them the way showers. And the more I do this and the more I look at the big structure, the more I want to encourage people to just come within, come into your own connection with God, because that is what's going to lead us through. And everything is crumbling because it must crumble to be rebuilt, right? The financial systems, I know you know a lot about that, big pharma, all structures. And that's chaotic, and that's a bumpy road. But for it to fully come into structures that are actually supportive of humanity, there has to be this what we call tribulation time that we're in now. And there are still so many agendas happening. And one of the things Spirit said to me was that Trump is amazing because he's a catalyst. He's a catalyst for us to get to New Earth. He's not the be all and end all. He's a brilliant chess player, art of war player. He is not okay, cool, he's in, so now we in 5D New Earth, woohoo. It's not. This is the seeding of us getting there. He plays from the higher fourth dimension. That's where he's tapped into. That's what I'm getting. I'm not saying I know everything, and I'm not saying I'm right, and if it resonates with people, great. If it doesn't, chuck it, no problem. But this is the beginning of us of the real change and the real shift. But there is still a dark structure that has clout and control, and there's still a war, like you said, going on, and that takes time. We are governed by time, linear time on earth. And so I know it's frustrating for people. I know people have felt, especially over the last 4 years, like it's been an exhausting journey, you know. And the only thing I can say to people is just don't give up on doing the inner work within self, moving into a space of love within self, because that is the greatest gift you can give at the moment. It's what we're here for.
It is. There was a great meme many years ago of when they were building the Channel Tunnel between France and England, where they were digging from both ends. And they gave up about a metre away from each other because they said, we've missed each other. And they were that close. That's where we are right now. We're that close. And you're absolutely right. Now is not the right time to give up. And I always use the example when you talk about different people have different perspectives. I use the example of the Mediterranean, which we could see out of our window here. Our view from here is the same as everybody else from here. But a diver who's 10 meters underneath the same body of water that we see from here has a completely different perspective to us. And his perspective is accurate, 100%. And so is ours, but they are different.
Yes. Well, that's beautiful. Sorry, I love it.
So simple, and yet we need to embrace people that see things from a different perspective.
Yes. Yes, and this is why we need all these different people coming with different teachings, different information, different ways of doing things. I've spoken a lot about blueprints and like information and how it's stored in light. I work a lot with light, geometry, sound. But I have a similar explanation of yours. And I said, imagine you're standing in a bubble, like, you blow a bubble for kids. And wherever you point your gaze of view, wherever dot you're holding that point of view, that is a truth. If you move a millimeter, it's another truth. They all hold truth. It's just where is your gaze focused? It's the lens. Where is the lens focused? So part of this journey is coming into a bigger perspective of seeing it in its entirety rather than being stuck on a specific point within that bubble space. And that's what we're breaking out of within the mind, because we are so programmed. And this is what I help people with, is like just all the limiting belief systems. Basically, the ascension path is, and this is what the external is representing, it's always the micro to the macro. The ascension path is stripping away, and let's be honest, there's been so much trauma and continues to be trauma on this planet, but stripping away that, because those compound within our cellular structure, within our DNA, into programs, belief systems, and that is everything that is not the spark of God. So as we do that inner work, and as we do that healing, and as we strip away those layers, and we become aware of our limiting beliefs, and we become aware of our programs and our traumas, and the layers to the mind is incredible. But the more we come into awareness, and that's why I think the conversation is always so important, because awareness allows us to shift, and it allows a complete rewiring of the neural patterning in the brain, and we become more connected to what I'm calling that unity consciousness. Because if we lived in a world where we moved around and we let everyone be who they are, as long as they weren't causing harm, and we respected everyone and they did the same back, it's such a simple principle. And I think that's where the majority of people want to go. But in order to get there, there has to be a crumbling of the old guard. And it's so beautiful, because we're really in that time now. But I don't want people to get disillusioned and think, there's just going to be a grand flash of light and everyone's going to wake up and it's happy days. The point of this journey is for us to do the inner work, because it's like a candle flame, the more that flicker on, it takes on a movement. And that's what I've seen happening with humanity, these amazing people who are dedicated to doing their inner work, and like testament to where we are right now, which is the ability for that very dark structure that's held control for so long to start getting dismantled. It's a big job. It's not going to happen overnight.
The dark energy is money.
Part of it.
Our attachment to money and wealth, whereas we need to focus on the wealth of our soul and what is within us. We've been focusing on the wrong things. We need, we want, rather than if you focus on what's within, God gives you everything you need, and quite a bit of what you want. But we're focusing on the wrong thing. We're focusing on our needs and wants rather than focusing on what's within and raising our frequency so that God can work with us.
I love that, and that's very true. So, that's another thing, the money system. I always say, I'm a mom to a little boy, raising him pretty much on my own. He's 2. And it's hard, so there are things, physical things. Think of all the single moms. I have such a heart for them on this planet. When you are living in a system that does not support you, and you're thinking about putting food on the table for your children, that's the only thing you can think about. It's a designed attack on being able to be in that bliss state of connection. So we must recognize that a lot of the systems have made it very hard. Well, we've kind of done it to ourselves, because that's all in my book. That's pre-known history. The dark uses us against ourselves. But it's really hard. We must have compassion for that. So I wouldn't say that money is the root of all evil. Or I think what you're saying is that the focus is wrong. And Charlie, I learned that incredibly well. So over the last 5 years, I at one point almost lost my daughter because I couldn't afford to stay in my home because of COVID. And I, instead of going into fear, which I obviously had, God used that, Spirit used that to so get me into a space of connecting. So I that pushed me further into the path that I'm on now, and trusting and having faith and not allowing. So I talk about this a lot, being present in the now moment. When we're worrying about the future, we're literally not, we're being fragmented. When we're in guilt and shame around the past, we're being fragmented. So all of these things tie together, because yes, that's when miracles manifest. That's when you really switch on your creator being without having any attachment to how or what. So I've learned that lesson incredibly well, but I do understand that that's not easy for everyone when you're faced with loss of a child, or having to even get your child to school or fed or whatever. Those are very real needs for people. And the system is not set up to support. It's not. And a mother, I think about it, a mother is one of the most spiritual, most important jobs you can do, because you are shaping the next generation.
Just on that point, money is the root of all evil. That's the wrong context. The earlier 3 words are the love of money.
The love, yes.
The love of money is the root of all evil. People miss those 3 words off, the love of, because they just throw love of money is the root of all evil. And they don't put it in context. It's when you fall in love with money. Oh, give me more, give me more. That's not, and that's the point I'm trying to make, is that when you work on yourself, God will look after the rest. And we haven't focused on ourselves anywhere enough. And I'm telling you that from experience. I know that from experience. I've had planes, I've had boats, I've had cars, I've had all the things you could ever wish for, and never found happiness. Now I found happiness.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I so agree with you. And that's the greed. And so that's the ego. So the ego developed on our planet because it was not safe. So there's this, I must keep and hoard and hoard and hoard and get more and more and more and more, because it's all coming from a space of fear. And so we have love and we have fear and everything in between. But at its base, anything negative is a fear frequency, which is, we're moving out of the fear, stripping away the fear. And that's why you'll see the most beautiful souls have had the hardest lives, because that's like a diamond is shaped under pressure. It has forced them to release that fear, to go into that fear, so that they can move more into love. So yeah, 100%. The love of, I just think fear in general is the enemy.
And fear is a killer.
Yeah.
And in the sense of fear, the interesting thing with the word fear comes into the Bible as to the fear of God. If you read it again in context, you have to go back to the Aramaic and the Hebrew version. The translation of the word fear, as in fear of God, is to know and understand.
Interesting. Wow.
Now, these things, this is where we've been misled by things, and you only find that when you go within yourself and you connect to God. And you will not connect to God through somebody else. You have to have your own personal link with God. You can't piggyback somebody else. You can't think think that because you go to church or chapel or mosque or temple or synagogue every week, that gives you a ticket. It doesn't. It's down to you individually.
And I'm so glad you raised that, because for the last 10 years, I've done walking meditations, which is my movement of prayer and connection to what I call my higher self. So that I have been teaching courses on, and I've been helping people and when I ask, I always get the answer. There is no bypassing. There's no quick trick to the time commitment and consistency it takes to want to form that connection and to lean into that connection and to trust that connection. So when you look at people who channel information, they've been practicing for years. They've got it wrong. They had to get it wrong along the way. It's part of it. So I 100% agree with you. This is a journey of stripping away. And I want to come back to the awareness, because AI, as I've been shown, or what I call Luciferic AI consciousness, it works off two things: unawareness and fear. So when people talk about spiritual attacks, that's a whole nother conversation. It can only work when you're holding unawareness and fear in your field, in your body, in your auric field, or I call it your biofield, and your internal field. So I also think it's really important to be having conversations. So a lot of the work I do one-on-one with my clients is there's a long conversation, because when you have that aha of that awareness around something within yourself, there's a freedom, there's a liberation, it's like a ladder. You climb to the next step, and that is the freeing up that is currently happening through people going, you know what, I'm not going to go into victim. I'm not going to go into fear. I'm going to stop and pause. And the only way we can really get into that space is when we're in a space of neutrality. We have to be in a space of neutrality to be able to objectively look at something.
You just mentioned the word victim there. It's we've been through the last 10, 20 years of people who have claimed victims. And we've all been through something that's not nice, where we have a choice. And we've all played the victim card at some time in our lives, all of us, myself included.
Me too.
I remember the time I did it. I was the victim, and I look back in history, and the only person that was ever going to save Charlie was Charlie. And that happened in 1984. I realized the only person that was going to save me was me. And I got over that victim stage then. And I've had to get over it a few times since.
Yeah.
And it's not hard to get over when you connect to your higher self, when you connect to what's within you. God gave you everything you need from day one.
It's all in our DNA, though, Charlie. It's all there. It's busy restoring. So it's been that carbon base, and it's moving into its light form. So with the density of Earth, our bodies, our physical bodies, with the density, with all the trauma that Gaia, the Earth, has been through, as we are shedding, she is shedding, which means we release the shadow. And that's another thing. The shadow has been hidden for so long. It's been operating behind the scenes for so long. It has to come up and out. That's why we will see a play out of organic, natural earthquakes, and some of them will be also dark structure. It's going to be interwoven. The earth has to shake. We have to shed, and that all of that beautiful information resides within your DNA. That's why I call it the God source at the nucleus. That's the spark of God that's in you, and it's so amazing, because when you realize that you are your own savior, you are your own gift, you are your own connection, it's so freeing, because we do move out of that victim. And it's funny, because I had a little story. The one day I was coming down the stairs with my son. He was waking up at like 3:30, 4 o'clock every morning last year. I didn't know how I was going to make it. And some glass fell on the floor, and he was trying to crawl into it. And it was just one of those mornings. And I had the thought that popped into my head, I wish I could check into like a hospital for, like something small could happen. I could sleep for 3 days. And as the thought came in, I had a giggle and it left. And I thought, and then Spirit said to me, hey, if this was you 10 years ago, 5 years ago, with a child on your own, doing this day in and day out, cleaning up glass, you would have sat on the floor and cried and phoned your sister or friend and said, I can't do this, you have to come and save me. But it was that little moment where I was like, wow, the work that I've been doing really works, because it doesn't mean by doing the work that we're not going to walk through hard circumstances, the trash still needs to go out. You got kids that are going to puke, you might puke, there's still all of these things, but our ability to deal with those hard circumstances gets better and easier, and the load gets lighter as we go through this journey. So just a little funny antidote on the whole victim thing, my little story. I ended up giggling on the floor.
Yeah. Well, Farrah, lovely to see you. And thank you for the insight. And where can my audience find you?
I do little bits on Instagram, and I have a website, farrahweir.com, Weir. Oh, my name is actually Farrah, and my surname is Weir. So like weird without the D.
We'll put the link in down below. Thank you very much,
Charlie. And it's just, if I can leave anyone with anything, it is to, like we said, go into that space of neutrality and really look a bit higher before we jump into conclusions around the two timelines that are mimicking each other.
Hi guys, this is a personal message from me. If you see a video on Facebook, you are following an imposter. I am not on Facebook. I have not been on Facebook since June 2020 when they removed me. Please redirect to watch all of my videos at charlieward.com. All official social media links are on my website. We urge you to stop following fake channels. I will never message you in a video. I will never ask you for money. I will never message you privately. I will never contact you directly. I will never ask you to email any information directly. I will never sell you cryptocurrency or any currency, or ask you to open a quantum financial system wallet. Please do not get caught by these scammers who are out there. I do not endorse other truthers so that an imposter can say that I've said this. I will not ask you directly or indirectly to open a quantum wallet. So please be careful. If you want to check out the validity of anything, contact us directly via our website at charlieward.com. There's a contact page there. We have a customer care team there to help you.